In August 2023, one Croat writer said some terrible things about squashing, poisoning, and gassing Serbs. First, I will give you the background of the scandal. There is polemic between Serbian and Croatian scholars about Dubrovnik literature. Many Serbs see Dubrovnik literature as Serbian. Of course, Croats are against this. They accuse Serbs of appropriating Croatian cultural heritage. Personally, I think Dubrovnik literature is neither Serb nor Croat. Dubrovnik or Ragusa was a city-state like Monaco. Their independence was abolished by Napoleon in 1808. This means that Dubrovnik Ragusa was independent when most of their literature masterpieces were written. Italy had a great influence on Dubrovnik, and sailors and merchants from Dubrovnik went all over the world. Then why do Serbs claim Dubrovnik literature? Serbs had rather good literature before Ottomans conquered the land. Serbian Prince Stefan Lazarević was also a poet, and he wrote Slovo Ljubve, famous love poem. Nun Jefimija wrote Lament for a Dead Son and Eulogy for Prince Lazar. During Ottoman occupation, about 400 years, Serbs had no literature. There were no public schools and most Serbs were illiterate. Running away from Ottomans, some Serbs escaped to Dubrovnik. Today it is hard to track someone's origin due to the lack of documents. Serbs claim that some Dubrovnik writers and scientists had Serb origin. Theoretically this is possible, but cannot be verified. Personally, I would not make such claims because of the lack of proof. Croats and Serbs usually fight over scientist Ruđer Bošković, 1711–1787. Ruđer could have had Serb origin, but he wasn't Serb. Ruđer is not a Serbian name. The last name Bošković derives from Boško, name used by both Serbs and Croats. Ruđer Bošković was Catholic, which tells me all I need to know about him. Serbs are ethno-religious. If they convert, they stop being Serbs. Croats are also ethno-religious and can only be Catholics. All Balkan nations, except Albanians and Roma, are ethno-religious. Of course, there are exceptions to the rule. In 19th century Dubrovnik, there was Serb Catholic movement. Some people in Dubrovnik declared to be both Serbs and Catholics. This only complicates things. Now, we come to the problem of the language. There is no Dubrovnik language. Croatian and Serbian are like British English and American English. Often it is impossible to make distinction. Sometimes it's very funny. Home is called kuća in Serbian and dom in Croatian. But homemaker, housewife, is called domaćica in Serbian and kućanica in Croatian. Croat language purists say that interjection bre is exclusively Serbian. Bre is used in colloquial speech to get someone's attention, to express surprise or astonishment. Some Dubrovnik writers used bre. Does this mean they were speaking Serbian? The fight can now begin. Croats say that Dubrovnik writers used bre when Serb characters were speaking. However, these characters were not labeled as Serbs. The modern idea of nationality was born in 19th century, long after these writers died. Would Marin Držić, 1508–1567, describe himself as Croat? How did locals in Dubrovnik call their language? Dubrovnik poet Ivan Gundulić called his people Slavs. His most famous work, Epic Osman, was dedicated to his Slavic people. Gundulić was Catholic, thus I don't see him as Serb. The language he used is Shtokavian dialect. Both Serbian and Croatian are versions of Shtokavian dialect. If one wants to see evolution of Shtokavian dialect, the person has to analyze Dubrovnik literature. I would make one interesting observation. Shakespeare is studied in USA even though he wasn't American. Shakespeare is seen as important for English language. The language used by Shakespeare is ancestor of modern British English and American English. In case of Dubrovnik, Croats don't want to share cultural heritage with anyone. The problem was dormant while Yugoslavia existed. Personally, I don't care much about the polemic about Dubrovnik ethnicity and the language. But I do care about my people. I will not name the person I'm about to trash. This Croat woman is member of Matica Hrvatska. Matica Hrvatska is literature and cultural society established in 1842. This woman represents the intellectual elite in Croatia. She gave interview to Croat newspapers, which means that Serbs did not forge or change what she said. Discussion was about how Serbs try to appropriate Croatian cultural heritage. She said, Serbs are like bugs that need to be squashed, poisoned, or gassed. This is next level of Serbophobia I wouldn't expect from educated person. Instead of using valid arguments to support her opinion, she talks about gassing people. And she does this even though Croats have very dark past involving mass murders of Serbs, Jews and Roma in World War II. This is beyond scandalous. Matica Hrvatska had to issue a statement that they don't agree with this woman's words. By the way, her initials are SS, which I find to be very fitting. A person named SS talks about gassing people. I am shocked that educated women can say things like gassing people. Gassing people is immediate reference to Holocaust and Auschwitz. I googled gassing people and this is the first result, Holocaust Encyclopedia. It is really a miracle that Yugoslavia survived for so long considering this level of hate. She wants to squash, poison and gas Serbs over the history of literature. And then Croats brag how they are more European and more civilized than Serbs. If being European and civilized means gassing people you don't like, then I prefer to be Balkan savage. Croats also make fun of Serbs for identifying with Jews and Holocaust. But Serbophobes and anti-Semites use the same language to describe Serbs and Jews. Dehumanizing ethnic groups is the first step in the genocide. Comparing Serbs to bugs means that Serbs are not humans and can be killed without any remorse. Before the genocide in Rwanda, Tutsis were called cockroaches by radio show host. This man was later sentenced to life in prison for his role in Rwandan genocide. This is called hate speech. The only good thing in this situation is that the number of Serbs in Croatia is dropping. Thus, Croat far-right will not have opportunity to kill mass numbers of Serbs in some future war. The craziest detail is that this woman is considered far-right in Croatia. If Croatian intellectual elite would want to squash, poison and gas Serbs, then I don't want to picture what Croat extreme far-right would want to do to Serbs.